people are focused on the wrong things. The people that invent the music make up 5% of the entire population. Why would you spend your time appealing to the 5%? We're signing up for music for commerce. This is not music for culture. There's no money in this. Do you know what I mean? The only way that there's money in this is that if people that don't belong to your culture see you as a worthy investment.
Elements of faith as a crutch. I feel like that's a big part of what Blade Babies is, especially the despair of society. Is that kind of the approach you were taking? It was like, yeah, I'm going to really reel you in with some very fun sounding music, but then you're going to listen to what I have to say.
If you want to fix the way that people interact with the music, we need to change the way that the music is being produced, why it's being produced, how it's being distributed to begin with.
All right, me and you in a chair. I feel like this one is a long time coming. Let's go down this goddamn rabbit hole.
Please.
To start with, how does it feel basically being an academic and then finding music later in your career? And at what point did that kind of happen?
It's been a bit surreal, you know, because this wasn't like the plan for a very long time. You know, I didn't grow up wanting to do music. Although like in my late adolescence, you know, year 11, I started rapping, taking part in cyphers that were helping my friends. But at that point, it was just a hobby. I mean, I didn't even want to make a career out of it. Like, you know, I was just doing it to do it. I was quite happy, like, you know, letting, you know, the man that rap. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that was just that. But as time progressed, I guess, you know, I found myself like enjoying the craft a bit more and more, like, you know, going back, listening to the classics, things of this nature. But even then, that was just as a listener, you know what I mean? It wasn't really like something I was doing with the intention of, yeah, one day I'm going to be a rapper. Although at the time, like, I was, you know, I had begun writing my raps, you know what I mean? Then we get to like first year of uni, I'm like, oh, what do I want to do in my life? I don't know yet, do you know what I mean? And yet the music is still just there. So I was like, I may as well try my hand at that, you know. End of first year, drop my first song, you know, continue dropping songs every few months or whenever I had the money to, innit? And then that led me to, obviously, last year, graduated, dropped Lamb from LA, started rolling for real. But yeah, like, it was something I stumbled into, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Just out of curiosity, you know?
I think it's interesting how the idea of being like a child of an immigrant and expected to do a traditional career path of be a politician or be a doctor, especially something with a politics and sociology degree. How did that really work with your parents and maybe their mentality of how your career should go?
Yeah. Like, my mum was never really, she never really cared too tough, like, what it is I went on to do, you know what I mean? She just cared that I had the education. So, like, when I told her that I wanted to be a rapper, she was like, yeah, it's cool, but like, just go get your degree in it, then like, you can do what you want after, I don't really care, do you know what I mean? And that's what happened. I got my degree, I was like, calm, man's on his rap thing.
Yeah.
She was like, okay, but like, you still don't get no money in it, do you know what I mean? So like, for a long time, it was like, what's it? Like, she didn't care, but she cared that I was broke.
Yeah.
But like, you know, now that's not the case no more. We're up in it, like, do you know what I mean? Her son's a rapper, she's cool with it. So,
Yeah.
Like, she was easy, to be fair.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I feel like you very much become quite a bit of a staple in the UK underground.
You think?
I think so. And I think it depends on almost which side of the scene you're on. Because I would say that what we have started to notice is almost like a racial divide in the scene. Is that something that you've observed, and in what ways do you see it?
Yeah. I think there has been, you know, as far as like, you know, a younger, more suburban, you know, demographic that like just now finding out about alternative black music in the UK. Like, you know, they love it. And that's all right, innit? But the way in which they see the music, the culture, the community, and the ways in which, you know, people that have been there before them do, you know what I mean? Like, there's differences.
Yeah.
But that's all right. That's bound to happen. You know what I mean? Happened to hip hop, happened to every black British genre before. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
I think it's also an element of the rewriting of history that's kind of starting to occur, because it's almost like you can see the kind of fan that they are in two camps. Either one, you think that Lancey Foe started the current wave of the UK underground rap scene, or you think that Fresh Boy Swag did. And it's almost like two distinctive different camps and takes you in two different directions. One is a accurate retelling of history. The other is a rewriting of history, I guess. The question is, do you not think that that can have disastrous consequences later on if we let this run?
I mean, of course it can, but that's kind of what we sign up for when we started doing music for commerce. You know what I mean? From the moment we stopped making music, in our communities, for our communities, like, not for commercial gain, and then, we started selling it. That's exactly what we signed up for. Obviously, the people that started it originally, you know what I mean? So like the man that started from sound systems and then transitioned into that garage and jungle, and they could have never predicted that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But that is indeed the trade-off. Do you know what I mean? The moment, you decide, like, man's doing this music thing, this is a business now, this is my job. You do trade off complete control of cultural narratives. You know what I mean? So that is that,
I think there's almost an interesting idea where certain subgenres within the scene, there isn't necessarily as much depth as others, and so they get to get away with a lot. And I think some people gravitate more towards that. For example, the rage side of things. For example, especially when they kind of the rage / hyperpop adjacent descendants may not always be as conceptually dense as other sides of things. But I think it's really interesting how a lot of listeners of that genre are saying like, oh, we're not listening to this in lyrics, even though there have been people in that scene that have actually been able to be quite profound with the music. Why do you think that people look at the underground scene in such a reductive way a lot of the time?
I think because, in the modern age, like, if we just look at patterns of consumption in general, people aren't involving themselves in subcultures based on, the beliefs of said subcultures. You know what I mean? It's more so an aesthetic belonging than anything else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's reflected in the underground as well. Like, as far as patterns of consumption being used as like a way to just like, passively go about your day. Like most listeners of music listen to music passively. Do you know what I mean? Does it sound nice? Does it not sound nice? You know what I mean? That's about where it starts and stops. And, with them listeners, they're looking to be stimulated. You know what I mean? They're not really looking to be entrenched in the history of a genre. They're not looking to be, what do you call it? Like, they're not looking to educate themselves on certain things. You know what I mean? I think, that's okay. Like, it's all right to be a passive consumer of something. Do you know what I mean? It's, again, bound to happen when you do something for commerce. There are people that are just, they're there for the dopamine. Once they get the dopamine, I can't, on your way. So, yeah, as far as, like, the underground, even though, like you said, innit, like, there are people in, subgenres that get looked at as, like, lyrically, subpar, that are lyrical.
Yeah.
But it's like, the fans aren't there for that. So, like, no one cares. Do you know what I mean? The fans are there. They're there for the beats. They're there, for the sense of belonging, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The feeling of being alternative as opposed to actually being alternative. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I think that's par for the course of me. Remember that a lot of people we're talking about are teenagers.
Yeah.
I mean, teenagers are going to do stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we look at the 2000s, it was suburban teenagers getting involved in grime. If you look at the 90s, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was,
suburban teenagers get involved in punk and indie music.
There you go. Do you know what I mean? Jungle.
It's always going to go that way.
You know what I mean? 80s, punk, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it's just the latest in a long line.
Yeah.
So that's the way I see it, innit? I don't really see it as abnormal.
No.
You know what I mean? It just follows a pattern that's already been set. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just that because man's alive to see it, do you know what I mean? And like, this is a scene that like, man's actively part of, and I feel like a lot of commentators that, talk about this are actively part of it. It feels different. But
Yeah. I think it's also a thing where you can't just completely blame the audience, specifically because there's a whole ecosystem coming in, especially as the scene's getting more popular, and it will get to a point, just like with grime and just like with drill, the big industry will swoop round and they will pick their golden boys to take to the top. And I feel like the UK Underground has literally had that moment very recently. They've picked their first one, being Fake Mink. I guess in terms of since that commercialization is happening, does that mean things will continue down this road eventually?
Absolutely.
And then it will get to a point where it will almost do what hip hop is now doing, which is like we're going back to square one after it falls out of the charts, etc., etc. Do you think that will just be the cycle that it goes through?
That's inevitable. You know what I mean? I think in 20, 30 years, what's underground now is going to be, people will, like the youths of them are going to see underground now the way we see Afro scene, the way we see drill. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, that's the cycle when you're signing up for music, for business. I feel like a lot of people that, like have an opinion about this, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel them. I don't necessarily disagree with them, but, it's the fact of the matter is, like, we cannot have our cake and eat it too. Do you know what I mean? The moment, like, artists are understandably, getting big labels involved, because that's what we do it for. I mean, we ain't got to lie to no one. We're doing this for the money. Do you know what I mean? So as soon as that happens, the exchange for that is calm in it, as far as controls over venues, as far as control over who's a gatekeeper, who's not a gatekeeper. Do you know what I mean? That's gone. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. With that comes, the standards to entry of cultural knowledge, of, you know what I mean, a certain level of lyrical prowess or musical prowess or whatever you like to say. Or, you know what I mean, even just belonging to a certain community. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. Especially with the internet, do you know what I mean? You don't really need to pass through gatekeeper, the hoops that gatekeepers would have had. Like, I was having this conversation the other day, you know what I mean? 10 years ago, if you wanted to be a rapper, you needed to be on Fire in the Booth. You needed to do SBT or Street Stars or Red Tat. If people didn't think that you could rap, then you wasn't going to make it as a rapper. Do you know what I mean? Or if you did, you was allowed one song, that's it. But as a TikToker, do you know what I mean? Or in the era of TikTok, there's no need for that. Do you know what I mean? You can build your own fan base within these communities, separate to, what do you call it? Or you can skip that. You can make a fan base consistent of people that are not from these communities at all. Do you know what I mean? But it's within a genre made by people in the communities. Do you know what I mean? Simply because of, the ease of access. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go to a certain venue to get heard. You don't have to do an open mic. You don't have to, what do you call it? You don't have to do a talent nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Even back in the day, like something like Rise and Talents used to be a big thing. You imagine telling a 13-year-old that they have to do that today.
Yeah.
When they got something like JJ Fins, they know if I get on JJ Fins, I can directly appeal and market to my target audience. Yeah. Why do I need to win over the demographic that says my music is real anyway? Do you know what I mean? So the way I see it, it's par for the course.
I feel like there is another element of looking at it that almost challenges that narrative of we as the gatekeepers with our phones that like and comment. We are the gatekeepers, because if you don't get the likes and the comments from us, you go nowhere. So I think there is almost an element where it's just like, well, there is some personal responsibility we can take. And it's almost like we've got to stop giving everyone cookout invites. There's an element where everyone's getting a cookout invite, and we have to just, at least for a bit, just be like, no more cookout invites. It's just gone a bit far. Especially even if we look outside the UK underground scene. Why do we have an Italian guy making Afro swing, and there's just bare people in the comments being like, yeah, you're invited to the cookout? Is it almost like a self-esteem thing?
Let's run with for the sake of the argument, let's say that it is, My next question would be, when do you think that started?
I would say if we go back as far as like Olowa Jack, like Love Island Jack Fowler, I think it was when black culture and even just black British people were almost like perceived by white mainstream audiences, and we were just happy with that because we were just ignored and denied an existence for a long time. But I think it's like we've had enough of that now to the point where surely we shouldn't be this easily impressed. You'd think, or you'd hope.
You know what I think? I think, niggas in this country have been getting shit on for as long as we've been here. Do you know what I mean? That's our reality. You know what I mean? We make music, it gets censored, it gets pushed to the bar, it gets pushed to the margins. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about shit like Form 696. We talk about, black venues, getting closed down. We talk about black acts not being allowed to get booked. Do you know what I mean? They're not allowed to make money off their music. We've seen it with Skengdo and AM. We've seen it with 1011, them man having to be CGM. Like, we see it.
Yeah.
And like, man aren't aware of it. You know what I mean? The black consumers are aware of it. So, you know what I mean? When they see someone, when they see someone that, has that whiteness where subconsciously or consciously that, they value, when they see them validate what their cultural production, they're like, rah, this is real, like, right, and then they champion them. Do you know what I mean? That is bad. Of course. Do you know what I mean? It leads to things that are unfavorable happening. Of course. You know what I mean? But it's like, that's not a new thing.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That didn't just start with the teenagers of today.
No.
I mean, that's been here.
It's been a thing.
You know what I mean?
Rock and roll, it was the very beginning of it, right? Elvis Presley got slapped on the face of something that had already had an entire generation of people doing it.
You feel what I'm trying to say? So, if we're gonna start pointing fingers about it, do you know what I mean? We're gonna have to do the knowledge. You feel me? Like, I feel oftentimes when people talk about a lot of phenomenon as far as like consumption as it pertains to the underground, they act like the teenagers of today invented it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't exist before.
I think the worst thing we do is say that the current generation's problems are problems that no one other generation has ever seen. When it's like, no, they're just slightly more advanced, but it's fundamentally the same problem.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? And that's partly why a lot of the discourse feels like nothing discourse. Like one thing, like for example, millennials do. They act like, when grime came about, people were super okay with it. What do you call it? Everybody loved grime. Everyone knew what grime was.
I hate that revisionism.
You know what I mean?
It went through the same thing that drill did, really, in terms of, they hated us. It was gutter culture. It was X, Y, and Z. It was kind of suppressed for the same sort of reasons. Mm-hmm. And even garage had a little phase of that as well. Mm-hmm. I think there's always going to be a music of rebellion in every generation. Grime was ours. Drill was yours.
You feel me? Because it's like, the way I see it, people are focused on the wrong things. Do you know what I mean? As far as like calm. If you're an artist and you live in a country where the people that invent the music make up 5% of the entire population. The people that consume the music make up the rest of the 95%. The only way you're going to make money is if you appeal to enough people where a label can see you as a worthy investment. You know what I mean? You're gaining traction, we're going to give you this money. We're sure that you can recoup this. Why would you spend your time appealing to the 5%? You know what I mean? Just like, as a rationale. Man's not even saying that it's right or wrong.
Yeah, that's just the maths of it.
You get what I'm trying to say? And it's the maths of it because, again, we're signing up for music for commerce. This is not music for culture. As much as, we as artists, I believe we have a responsibility to serve the culture. You know what I mean? But I say that because I'm from it. If man's just an artist for being an artist's sake, you know what I mean? Like I already said, there's no money in this. Do you know what I mean? The only way that there's money in this is that if people that don't belong to your culture see you as a worthy investment, as far as hype, as far as, a money-making machine, a profit machine. Because that's what we're in for.
Yeah.
Music for profit. Don't we think it would be a worthy use of our time to change the economy? That means that as an artist, you have to think profit versus culture, as opposed to trying to find individual scapegoats that started the problem when it doesn't look, that's not what happened. Do you know what I mean?
It's like putting a plaster on a gunshot wound.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because it's like calming it. Let's say, for example, the most recent example of this, is Fake Mink here. Mm-hmm. Let's say, everybody gets what they want. You know what I mean? They blackball Fake Mink never makes another tune again. That doesn't change the fact that for the black artist, you know what I mean, venues that we perform in, that we get paid off, are closing at a rapid rate. The entry for arts, as far as, teenagers, children, you know what I mean, the amount of youth centers, art centers that were open 10, 15 years ago, it's like half and more than half of them are closed. You know what I'm trying to say?
The ecosystem still sucks.
You feel me? We talk about some streaming, get paid 0.0001 penny on a stream.
Yeah.
I get 100,000 people to listen to one song. That's not paying me £100,000.
No.
People don't even know. It's not common knowledge that 1 million streams on Spotify is getting you 4 bags.
Yeah, it's like 4
you know
bags.
what I mean? There's so many things that contribute to the culture of music, as far as black music being fucked up. We're being exploited on so many sides. And I think people are making scapegoats of the wrong things. Do you know what I mean? If you want to fix the way that people interact with the music, we need to change the way that the music is being produced, why it's being produced, how it's being, distributed to begin with. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of big picture things that are affecting the little things that, people are rightly having an issue with.
You can't separate the culture from the capital.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? That's not how it works. Especially when, it's music for commerce. Do you know what I mean? It's not like people are releasing their music into the ether for nothing. Everything is linked to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when we're having these discussions and we're separating culture from capital, it seems a bit naive. You know what I'm trying to say? Especially when man's been in these rooms, man's been in these labels.
Yeah.
I've walked into rooms, you know what I mean? Like, for example, Lamb from LA. I didn't get no distro deals for that. I was walking into label offices, A&Rs were looking at me dead in my eyes. I was like, yeah, we like this music, but you know what I mean? We feel like it's too early.
We can't sell that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You know, it's a matter of calm. They see this music, it's good. It speaks to, you know, the culture. The culture's happy with it, but it doesn't sell, so we're not selling it.
Yeah.
Calm. I had a line. I add some 808s. I make jerk. Okay, the numbers start telling a different story. Now I'm the voice of the generation.
Now they're gonna knock on the door.
You feel me? And the only thing that's changed is, you know, a difference in approach to the priority. Do you know what I mean? Because before I was just like, calm in it. I just want to say what I have to say in the way I want to say it and put it out there. And people accepted that. I'm as grateful for that. Do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, if that could pay the bills, Skinny Man would have got paid 25 years ago. You know what I mean?
Kalashnikov would have been rolling in bread by now.
You feel what I'm saying? So, you know, when we're having these conversations about where the culture is going, we know where the culture is going. We just need to look where the capital is going. That will always answer that question. And I feel like that's my number one problem with these discourse, innit? If you want to act like fake Mink is like, you know, like Satan reincarnate.
I wouldn't say that far.
You know what I mean? Not you, but like, do you know what I mean? Just the general discourse around.
Yeah, definitely.
Like he's the harbinger. He's, you know, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse as far as it pertains to, you know, cultural deterioration.
But the industry is picking him because he's where it's like, oh, this is where the capital's likely to go. This is the best bet. So that's why they picked them. They do this with every generation. With Drill, they pick Central C. With Grime, they pick Stormzy. But it's not any of their faults individually. The industry picked them because that was their best bet. They said, that's the horse we're going to put our money on, and that's how it panned out.
Right. Do you know what I mean? You know? And it's like, when we're having these larger conversations, it's like, you know, we need to link it back to the big picture.
Yeah.
You know? When we concentrate on one person in relation to the scene, we're missing the whole, like, you know what I mean? It's like there's a play going on. You know what I mean? And like we're watching man on stage, and there are clearly strings attached to man. Do you know what I mean? That indicate that something larger is at play. But everyone's focusing on the play. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That's what it's like. So yeah, that's essentially like where I stand on that. You feel me? Like, yeah. Like if we're gonna talk, like let's talk for real. Like, do you know what I mean?
I hope you've been enjoying the episode so far. I wanted to quickly interrupt you for two reasons. A, tap on the subscribe button, like right now. It helps us grow the channel. But B, to let you know that this episode right here, right now, is available for sale on Even. You can purchase the episode just for a couple of bucks and help support the channel and support the artists as well. Scan the QR code. Now let's get back into it.
I think another way in which this approach to the topic, this general ethos that you have around these sort of topics would be really good, is when we can talk about a lot of your generation and the younger generation's turn towards faith. As of recently, a lot of people are turning towards religion. And one thing that we know is people tend to turn to religion during darker times and times of uncertainty, in a time where fascism and recession is on the rise. Is there an element to where we are just seeing a turn to religion out of pure despair?
Of course. Why else would people do that in the middle of their lives? Well, like, listen, like, I know, like, you know, again, like, everyone thinks that, like, everyone has money in it. The black Brit, even just Gen Z in general, we are broke pocket, like, do you know what I mean? We ain't got shit to speak of, you know what I mean? Whether it be home ownership, whether it be, like, you know what I mean, general savings, you know, the future looks bleak. If we're just talking purely financial, speak much less of all the existential things that, you know what I mean, are going on right now, as far as, like, you know, Reform and Farage, they're currently going on a baby face run. You feel me? Like, climate change is not a joke no more. It was just 17 degrees in November. It was 17 degrees the other day, and we're in November.
It don't make no sense.
We're fried. You know what I mean? You know?
We're getting hot rain in the summer in England.
Mind games.
Actually, don't make no sense.
So it's like, you know, what do you call it? When it comes to the turn to faith, you know, in uncertain times, you know, people are going to turn to, you know, something that they see as certain, you know, when it comes to Abrahamic religion. It's like, like, you know, times could be rough too, don't worry, but like, God's got you. Or even if like, you know, your whole life is rough, don't worry, you know, you live right, you're gonna go to heaven. That's the reward. Do you know what I mean? People want to believe in something. Do you know what I mean? People want to believe that like, you know, like their suffering like means something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, what could be greater meaning than eternal reward?
Right. It's the idea that, well, society has failed you. That's what you previously had your faith in society. So you turn to a higher deity and hoping that that purpose won't fail you. Especially when you're looking at, a lot of people make the bad assumption that, oh yeah, it's because people are less educated. No, we're seeing graduates turning to faith. Why? Because you've just gone and done this slugfest of a degree, walked into a job market that's literally impossible. Everything you've been told about how the system is supposed to work. Go to uni, get a good graduate job, climb the ladder, get a mortgage, live a happy life. That all is just imploded. You've been conned. So you try and find something else to put your faith in. It's like, no matter whether you're religious or not, there's almost like, you have to admit, everyone needs faith in something, whether it be society, some system, some set of principles to live by, even just faith that the trains are going to run on time. You need faith in some sort of consistency, and more young people are finding religion in that. What is the pros and cons, do you think, of that, I guess?
Well, I think, you know, we're a generation that's like, you know, we feel that isolation like hasn't really been, you know, felt in the same way due to that technology and due to that, do you know what I mean? You know, like due to being raised in the advent of technology, you know what I mean? A lot of us are like millennium babies, innit? Do you know what I mean? All we know is social media, and like, it's ironic that, you know, like something that was meant to culture, connectivity, like it just contributes to that isolation. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in times of isolation, in times of hardship, in times of uncertainty, you know, to belong to a religion or to belong to a belief in something higher than yourself, like it can lead to, you know, a community. You know what I'm trying to say? As far as a pro, you know, you're now all of a sudden shoulder to shoulder with bare people that, you know, are the same as you or are similar to you and believe in something.
I think it's interesting because that's almost not what we're seeing in terms of the young people turning towards religion. We're seeing religion expressed as a staunch individualistic experience rather than a collective one. Even then, once upon a time, the biggest purpose and why people enjoyed the church being a part of English society specifically is because they used to help everybody. Like they used to run schools, they used to run homeless shelters. Now they're just in the streets telling you how bad of a person you are on a Saturday night out when you're a bit pissed. Why do you think the change in approach to this new generation turning to religion has been? Why has it not been something that's pulled people together in the same way that religion has been in the past?
Well, to that I'd say, when exactly was it? You know what I mean? When was religion en masse something that, you know, pulled together people only? You know what I mean?
Not
like,
only, definitely not.
All right then. So if we're talking about, you know, the church in England, that's calm, innit? You know, here they may have been helping people, but we know what they was doing. Like,
elsewhere,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
All right then, you know. So it's like, as far as that duplicity, that's always been there. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's something that's, you know, what do you call it, gotten better or worse over the years. I think now we can more clearly see it. It's more clearly articulated. Do you know what I mean? Because like, again, the age of social media, like, you know, people express their thoughts and opinions all the time. It's harder to, what do you call it? The curtain's drawn, basically.
Yeah.
You can see backstage. You know what I mean? Man's looking backstage. You're telling me something's not going on backstage. I can see it happening.
We can see it.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? I feel like that's what it is, as opposed to any real change in the setup. Because, you know, if we're talking about, like you said, innit? If we're talking about religion being a staunch expression of an individuality, like, if anything, you know, a man can say, as far as that is an extension of us becoming increasingly individualistic anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As part of, you know, post-modernity. Do you know what I mean? You know, us living in metropolitan cities, calm, you go about your day. Even London's unspoken rules. You see something, mind your own. You get what I'm trying to say? If people's individualistic expression of religion is anything, like, what do you call it, is attached to anything, I feel like it's an expression of that. Do you know what I mean? Which is, you know,
keep calm, carry on. Whatever you do, don't complain.
You feel me? And even community in itself, like, this is what I was going to say as one of the cons in it. As far as, what do you call it, belonging to something, people are turning to religion, you know, a lot of it, like, or, you know, a lot of the case here, when you see someone that's like recently turned red hair, in the manner that we're speaking of, not every convert, do you know what I mean, or revert or whatever. Like in the manner we're speaking of, someone seeking to belong, it's all about what they gain from it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a very pragmatic choice as opposed to like a real belief in the idea of community. Because like you said in it, as far as like, you know, church being a staple of community, the church gives, you know what I mean? But like there's people that believe that don't want to give. Yeah. They just want to receive because like, they're feeling fucked up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, but then again, that's been around. You feel me? But, you know, I think it's just, you know, highlighted more because we as a people are just becoming more and more individualized. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's starker.
I think it's also a consequence of the wave of politics that we've just come out of. You know, I think there's almost a point where society gets really drunk, they get really high on life, and then they sober up, and then they're like, oh, and you get the hangover and the guilt of getting drunk. So we just had a whole wave of pure classic, like 2016, 2018 woke, of wave of progressiveness, of sexual liberation, of open about queerness and progressiveness, of gay marriage and so many other things, socially as well. And then that was when supposedly the economy was somewhat on the up, which that turned out to be a bit of a lie. And then we've been plunged back into this recession again. And I think it's almost like everyone feels guilty about what they did during that woke period, that almost turning to religion is like an absolution. So like even then when we look at how religion is using political propaganda, I think there's a big connection to why purity politics is back, especially amongst the young people at the moment. I am seeing prudishness coming from 16-year-olds that I never thought I would ever see. Do you like see that connection? Does that worry you, I guess?
Does it worry me? Man's African.
I think that answers that.
You know what I mean? So, you know, as far as being around prudes, like, again, that man's super African. That man's been around that from day. Obviously, you know, as a rapper, you can imagine, especially the kind of rap that I make, like, I'm not a prude. Do you know what I mean? I think as far as purity, religion, and like its relation to, or purity culture as an extension of religion and its relation to the economy, like that's something that's been around. Like I'll tell you, yeah, see after the recession, my church was jumping. My church was like Eden, now it's packed out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in it, you know, as far as what was being preached, like, you know, you can imagine that it wasn't always exactly linked to the word. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, you know, it being an extension of that purity culture, that, you know what I mean? That
a lot of people don't want to admit that the way in which you practice your religion is a direct correlation to the politics of the time.
You feel me?
Like, it's not a coincidence that not only are people converting to religion, but usually the most orthodox and conservative denominations of those religions that they can find. Which at first I found odd, and then from, as you were saying, that's probably the reason why. It's almost like this is the hangover, right?
You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, like, you know, I've been living fucked up. Everything's fucked up. I need some order and structure.
Right.
I need what's better order than holy order? You know what I mean? What's higher than that? You know what I'm trying to say? You know, that's why you see, like, for example, one trend you might see is like, you know, like there's this really weird subsect of like white dons, that all convert to Catholicism at 25. You know what I mean?
Yes. Such an interesting phenomenon.
It's the same thing.
But I think sometimes it's not always of the politics, but sometimes it's also out of guilt. Because even then in recessions, people turn to crime and just generally as a result. And you want to try and make up for the back, and you do want to try and insist that you're a good person. And so it's almost like you can't also ignore that that definitely has something to do with why a lot of people turn to Islam when in prison. I think it's a big thing, especially when we look at a lot of ex-drill rappers that have come out of jail. A lot of them are Muslim. I don't even think necessarily it's anything specific about Islam. I think there's got to be just some sort of sociological thing of why Islam is more popular in prisons. It could have very easily been Christianity or Judaism, but is there a sense of guilt of this generation that we're seeing? Like a new generation of our generation feels very guilty about things that we've done, and we see religion as an answer rather than introspection.
I think, you know, for sure, what would you call it? Because even if you look at Abrahamic religion, yeah, the idea is no matter what you've done, once you say you belong, and you can live your life like that. Do you know what I mean? If you're someone where you're feeling fucked up about the things you've done because you're not sure that you can atone, that's what I'm trying to hear. You know what I mean? Like, you know, let's say like in the most extreme example, yeah. Let's say like, you know what I mean? Like, man called M, yeah. Do you know what I mean? That man with the man. Calm. I'm going to live with this for life.
I mean, we don't have to imagine. We can just look at Conor McGregor or Russell Brand.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you do the man thing, yeah?
Yeah.
And like, your human conscience is telling you, right, that was fucked up. You know what I mean? But like, that's what's telling you for years. Someone tells you, oh, right, like, by the way, like, if you believe in this, yeah, like, you're good. Do you know what I mean? Like, it stops. The voice stops. Sign me up. You know what I mean? You know, it's as simple as that. Of course, like, what do you call it? I think, you know, that innermost weight is something that a lot of us carry on a day-to-day. Not necessarily guilt, but like just something that like, or, you know, the feeling that like, we know we're not living right. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that will push most towards, what do you call it? Something that guarantees you redemption.
For those people though, that voice that you don't want to listen to that is troubling you is just accountability for your own actions, which as human beings, we hate so much. We've built whole philosophies about trying to get around that problem. But if we're going to get closer and closer to a society that looks for get out of jail free cards for the consequences of our own actions and our own philosophies and bigotry, because we've also seen that a lot more of the alt-right politics is using faith as a weapon in that sense of being like, but I'm Christian, so it's fine, and resorting it to this call to authority that says that this is okay. As we get further and further into that, surely those aren't great consequences for us. Like, I think even if you're not of that politic, I think if we're using religion in that way, and more young people are using religion in that way as that sort of crux, surely that just creates more and more people that never hold themselves accountable for anything.
I mean, we've been there, you know what I mean? Like, I think a key feature of postmodernity, yeah, you know what I mean? As far as like society after, you know what I mean, capitalism one, can't it? You can do what you want, essentially. That's the bit. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't owe anyone anything. You can do what you want. Do you know what I mean? So when we're looking at, what do you call it? The idea of, you know, not feeling accountability, responsibility, that's like ingrained in our society right now. Do you know what I mean? We don't owe each other anything, you know? That's like, for example, yeah, like if we take, you know what I mean, genocide in Palestine, you know what I mean? People's response that like, what do you call it? That like don't care, or like they don't outwardly support Palestine. It's, yeah, but why? Why? They never done anything for me. Do you know what I mean? Even another talking point that, you know, I see a lot, like, you know, where was the Palestinians when, you know what I mean? Like, we was marching for BLM and this, that, and the third. Like, as if to say, like, you need something.
It's got to be tit for tat.
You get what I'm trying to say? That's been us, you feel me? Like, as far as us getting deeper and deeper in that, we've been there for a long time now. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, to me, that's an extension of, you know, again, like the way in which the world is set up. Because even if we look at, you know, Black British history, as far as like Black British history and racial politics in this country, yeah. See when we landed here, like, you know, en masse, Windrush onwards, yeah. First 2-3 decades, yeah, like, what do you call it? A lot of people that were political activists at that time, yeah, that were Black, they saw the worth in, what do you call it? Unionizing with and being in communion with other communities. They saw the worth in, you know what I mean, organizing with South Asians. You know what I mean? Like they didn't see their fates as separate. They see it as intertwined. Now, a couple weeks ago, they were saying, yeah, we should boycott South Asians. South Asian shops. That because they have and we don't.
Yeah.
Do you know what
Even
I mean?
though it almost undermines a sense of solidarity that our parents built with their community 3 decades ago.
Right.
And they had held for about 10 years, 20 years.
Right. So when I see people expressing the same ideology through religion, you know what I mean? What do you call it? I see that as an extension of, you know, where we're at in society Point blank period. Do you know what I mean? You know, and again, par for
Right.
course.
And I think it's almost like it's really sad. There's some of the politics that we're kind of importing from America. It's almost like we've started a British Hotep movement.
Oh yeah, we'll see. I give it like 20 years before we start hearing foundational.
Yeah,
British-
and it's
Black
really
British.
alarming, especially like I don't know if we've got like British people like Black British people claiming to be true Hebrew Israelites yet, but we're
Yeah.
getting there.
We do. We already do. I swear to
no.
God, you go Bricky, yeah. You go Bricky tomorrow, High Street, midday, yeah. You will find Hebrew Israelites on Gresham Avenue outside the ice. Man passes them all the time, bro. Do you know what I mean?
I have noticed we've picked up a lot of the black capitalism elements of Hotepism, I guess, and especially the kind of ideas like, well, Jewish people are so protected. Why don't they ever protect us like black people? Even though there's a lot of history as to why that happened and how those things have gone. But it very much results of what you said. It's like, well, no one's ever looked out for me like that, so why should I ever look out for them? And it's causing this big splinter amongst oppressed peoples, right? And I know, obviously, we're not going to have all the answers on this goddamn podcast, of course. But I guess I wanted to go through these different questions because of how they're connected to Blair babies. But we've rambled so much about the politics stuff we haven't done about Blair babies, but we will do a little bit on it now. In terms of faith and elements of faith as a crutch, I feel like that's a big part of what Blair Babies is, especially the despair of society. I guess what songs really stick out to you as ones that kind of hone in on this idea?
The gospel for sure. You know what I mean? But I think there's an undercurrent in every song. I mean, every song somewhere, like, you know, there's a plea to a higher power. Do you know what I mean? But I think the gospel is where it's like at its most clearly articulated. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think, what do you call it? As far as the problems that like, I talk about, that are like innate with like, you know, the working class, the Black British identity, like the things that come with being from them communities, yeah, for real. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of that makes it complicated to be of faith. Do you know what I mean? There are things that you see, there are things that you see happen on your day to day that you cannot reason with.
Yeah.
And believe what you believe. Do you know what I mean? So it's like that push and pull is, you know, definitely like all over the tape.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's also a testament to almost trying to combat anti-intellectualism, because like there is so much fun in this tape. You're going to bop along a lot, but because you're so stimulated by the fun that's going on, you're probably going to listen and think, wait a minute, what did he say there? And you're going to rewind that 16 and like, wait, what did he say that? Like, this beat's cold, but now I'm really interested because this beat's cold. Right? Is that kind of the approach you were taking? It was like, yeah, I'm going to really reel you in with some very fun sounding music, but then you're going to listen to what I have to say.
Yeah, man. Like, you know, I feel like when it comes to, you know, rap of, you know, like certain topics, whether it be conscious, whether it be, you know, social commentary, whatever people call it, do you know what I mean? I think a lot of rappers think that what they're talking about warrants attention. Yeah. I don't think that's the case.
And I think it's also they have to use the proper, big, sophisticated words when it's like, no, our job, we've read all the fancy literature. Now you're supposed to translate it in a way that everyone else can find interesting enough to listen to. Not just because you're saying, it's like, oh, I'm talking about socialism, guys, you have to listen. Well, it doesn't matter if it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it's like, even me, like, I don't listen to boring music.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want to make boring music. Especially when what I'm talking about is so heady and weighty. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's gonna make it lively for the people. You know what I mean? So I try and do that, knowing that like I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
intentional.
feel like I like the fact that you're using genres like grime, like drill, like Afro swing, and all these other genres that people wouldn't expect a conscious rapper to be able to pull off, but you still manage it. And I think that's going to be really important for a lot of people. Why do you think that people feel like there is this very traditional way in which you have to be a conscious rapper?
I don't know, man. I just think that they're boring, innit? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think...
Why are they so serious?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people, like, because they take what they're saying seriously, they also take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then, like, you know, it leads to, like, that disconnect between the way in which, like, they get across their message and, like, the people they're trying to talk to, innit? Because, like, for man, yeah, like, man's not making music to talk to people who already agree with me. Like no disrespect, yeah. Like I don't care. We share the same views. You're not my target audience.
It's preaching to the choir.
You're not who needs to hear this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Man's
yeah.
talking to the youths who are like, man. Do you know what I mean? Because when I was younger, I wasn't trying to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I make sure to put it in a way that means that it's easily understood. Because like, a lot of people want to talk just to say that they said something. Do you know what I mean? Like they talk out of a want to feel important. You know what I mean? I don't really care. Do you know what I mean? Man's just talking to be understood. You know what I'm trying to say? Once that's the case, that's the case. You know, I don't really need to do all the hoops and whistles or like calm. Man's talking about something important.
Yeah.
This
Everyone listen up, guys.
This is the orchestra. This is the choir. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I hate that.
do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think it's boring.
Yeah.
You know? So
It's very telegraphed.
yeah, for sure. And it's like I never want to do that musically because I feel like as a person, that man's not that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
So in terms of like target audience, who you want to receive this, essentially you want this album to be for the people being like, you can stop pretending everything's okay now, basically, because you've got the general populace and the people, me, very much like you said a lot of times on the tape, we've got the intros, we drown ourselves in consumption. It's like, cool, let me show you what you're really feeling underneath all of the bravado and the consumption and the Instagram posts. This is what you actually feel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make you sit with it.
Uh-huh.
Is that basically your goal?
That's it, you know? Because once we acknowledge it, that's how we can start to fix things, innit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
If you see it in front of you, you're almost forced to do something about it.
Yeah.
But before, you either wanted to see it, it's either you couldn't see it or you didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I think the listeners of this album will fit into one of those two categories. You either knew it was there, but ignored it, and pretended the whole world isn't falling apart in front of you, even though it is. Or two, you genuinely couldn't see that the whole world is falling apart in front of you because you're too busy chasing all the flashy stuff and chasing the gal in the club and doing the smart whip, etc., etc. But I do also like the fact that you also have the message of, yes, you do these things. You're not a bad person and you're not dumb either.
Yeah.
This is happening to all of us in the same generations for reasons that are so much bigger than just you. I think that's a really important way, especially of how you round out the project. And I think the last song really shows how the listener probably feels when they come to that realization, which is powerless. Right? I think, again, even connecting that to why young people are turning to religion. Is it because the younger generation just feel very powerless right now?
Mm-hmm. For sure. You know what I mean? Politically, like, we're as powerless as we ever been. You know what I mean? We can't fix the housing market. You know what I mean? Racial tensions. You know what I mean? Like,
job market, horrific.
You get what I'm trying to say? You know, like, there are all these things that, like, we inherited that we didn't ask for and we can't do anything about. No. You know what I mean? You can't do anything about the fact that 17,000 grad jobs and there's 1 million graduates.
It's a mess.
You know what I mean? So in the face of that, all you will want to do is to lean on, you know, a higher power that guarantees that they can do anything about anything. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Because that's all you have.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, but let's like fix the conditions. You feel me? Do you know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna believe in something, that's cool. But let's additionally believe in the fact that we can change things. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause I feel like a lot of people also, you know, lean on religiosity as a cop-out for their social responsibility.
Which is why I was going to lead this to my last question, because I can understand on time and we're probably going to spend quite a bit on this last question. One thing that people lean on is bigotry. So if you look, obviously, at understanding of social hierarchy, one of the rules of social hierarchy is that not only are you allowed to punch down on people, it is your duty to. And the whole point of being social hierarchy is that it feels good to punch down on everyone below you. So when you feel hopeless and powerless, you feel better by the fact that you can punch down on whoever's beneath you, right? And I think we can put this in our own personal situations. The love of black men beating down on black women because it makes them feel better, right? I guess that's one element that you somewhat touch on in Bare Babies to an extent, but is that something that almost fluctuates within the cycles that we talked about of when we go through like good times, bad times, and recession, etc., etc.? Or is it just a more constant problem of like, this will exist so long as social hierarchy exists?
Yeah. I think it's more of a constant as opposed to, you know, something that's like as linked to capital, do you know what I mean? Simply because of things like social conditioning, as
Yeah.
far as how we see the differences between, the groups that we belong to and the out groups, you know what I mean? And, that's something that's present in our community. So it will manifest as stuff like misogyny, you know what I mean? And like, even with that, like, there are things that can be done about it. Do you know what I mean? There are open, active, vulnerable conversations that we can have in order to move to a place where, you know what I mean, that's something that we're not passing down to the youth. You feel me? So yeah, definitely. Like, I think that's something that, like, again, we just have to stop pretending that it's not happening.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like, I feel like that's a lot of man's instincts here. Like, a lot of people who, like, they may actually be decent guys, innit? Like, a lot of men who, like, hear this conversation, yeah, like, their reflex will be like calming it, but a man's not involved, so it don't concern me.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? It's like, you're missing the point. You feel me? Like, it's
But
not
now
about-
you're going to go out in various instances of your life. You're going to see this happen in front of you and pretend it isn't there, because then you have to do something about it.
You feel me? Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, calm in it. Like, in order to actually have that real kind of accountability that leads to, like everyone in our community being prioritized. Because as well, as a rapper, yeah, like, obviously, it'd be really easy for man to focus on, like, my perspective as a black man, innit? Do you know what I mean? But obviously, man has to understand that, like, my perspective, like, calm, man's a man, man's cisgender, innit? Do you know what I mean? So that influences the way
How
I see
you
the
look at
world.
things.
You get what I'm trying to say? And, like, man has to be cognizant of that as someone that is saying something with a platform. You feel
Yeah.
me? So it's like, as much as my perspective matters, as much as, the black cisgender man matters, absolutely. Do you know what I mean? Like, like, I don't have the impulse to now, like, okay, calm, mine is the only perspective that matters.
Yeah,
It's the perspective
yeah,
that matters
yeah.
the most. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So when it does come to conversations like misogyny and even other kinds of punching outside, when it comes
Yeah.
to homophobia in the black community, or like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
I think that's another classic one, where it's the classic thing is like, oh, okay, but I can always punch down on trans people because they're always going to be below you, right? So especially in times like this, you see a massive ramp up in transphobia and like homophobia, because it's like, oh yeah, we forgot that there are these people that are below us in the social hierarchy that we could just punch down on whenever we feel like it.
You know what I'm trying to say? That's like, for man, yeah, at the end of the day, like, everything I do is rooted in the fact that, like, calming it. Man, I don't just care about me. Because, I'm going to be good mad soon. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be fine. But, what does that mean if everyone's not fine? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
in relation
yeah.
to, like, the community I belong to.
It doesn't matter if I'm fine, if the entire society and community around me deteriorates,
You feel me?
right? It's the same way that why does a billionaire want a nuclear war, right? All the wealth and assets that he has gets vaporized by the nuclear bomb. If you've got nothing, to enjoy in society, what's the point of being rich and affluent within it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, again, for man, I feel like when it comes to, like, beginning to really paper over them kind of cracks and fissures in our community, like, it all starts with an honest conversation. Do you know what I mean? And, a lot of that saying calm in it, like, man's done some fucked up shit. Man's believe some fucked up shit. Like, I do that on a day-to-day. But, like, man's not trying to stay that way. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, just acknowledging that there's a problem and trying to move forward.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
feel me? And yeah, like, accountability is the word of the day for black babies. You feel me? Do you know what I mean? Whether that be of self, whether that be, towards, the things you do to other people. You know what I mean? Like, actually seeking that for real.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As opposed to just looking to, like, dump the guilt somewhere.
Of course.
You feel me? So, yeah.
So, Mimi is the executive producer on the project, someone who's been very much a esteemed journalist in the game for quite a while now. How did you and her end up working together on this?
Well, I released my first mixtape last year, Lambeth Not LA, and she saw it from another industry figure, and that's from Newham. Like, she must have posted it, supporting me. And she reached out to me then. She was like, yo, this project's the truth, man. Like, you know what I mean? She really enjoyed it. And then we had our first conversation over the phone. I think it was like a couple of days after, like a week after. Like, you know what I mean? We were just talking, you know what I mean? Got to know each other. And then from then, like, we formed an actual bond, you know what I'm trying to say? And I'd already started, like, thinking about Blair Babies or working on Blair Babies, but, I hadn't told her anything. Then, a couple of weeks passed, like, a good few weeks, and I spoke to my manager about it, and, we knew that, obviously for Blair Babies, like, we wanted to elevate things in it, but in order to elevate it, like, you know what I mean, we did need some help.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And we knew that would come in the form of an executive producer. So we just ran through the names that we thought would be worthy. It wasn't a lot. It was like 3 people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then obviously we landed on Mimi. And he was like, I was like, can't hurt to ask, innit?
Yeah,
So I must
yeah.
have rung her out one day. I must have asked her. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you want to be executive producer of this project? And she was like, really? I was like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then, you know, she agreed and we took it from there. But yeah, like literally I met her for the first time, like, I'm pretty sure it was this year. Do you know what I mean?
Damn.
Like, yeah. So, you know, a very new relationship, but like one I'm grateful for sure. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's the best place to leave it for now because we could probably talk all day. If there's anything that you need to go and do now that you've watched this, is go listen to Blair Babies again, top to bottom, and then tell all your friends to do the exact same thing. This has been Ceebo. Blair Babies out now. Run it.